Oftentimes I get asked, why do you want to be a composer? In today's video, I'm going to talk just about that, and maybe for you perhaps this will keep you thinking about, well, why do you want to be a composer, or why do you not want to be a composer? Maybe by the end of this video you won't want to be a composer anymore. Well, we'll see.
Yes, go on.
So let's get on with it. Let's start with the very beginning. So when I was in second grade, now mind you, this is back in 1999 when computers started to be a thing. We had this amazing elementary school teacher named Mrs. Silverman, who had my class write these one-page biographies on various different larger-than-life type people. I'm talking people like Albert Einstein and John Steinbeck and the like. And these months were categorized into scientists, authors, and musicians. So during the music month, I saw all these picture books strewn about our school library, and I was gravitated to one particular book that spoke about Mozart. And on one of these pages, I'm flipping through, and I see a picture of baby Mozart, well, 5-year-old Mozart, sitting there composing a piece on the piano. And the text wrote that Mozart was 5 years old when he wrote his first piano piece. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm already 7, I'm already 8 years old. I gotta get moving. I gotta get some paper, I gotta write some notes down. And I gotta tell you, I don't know what brought this thought into my mind, but it just happened that way. And as soon as I got home from school that day, I remember asking my parents, I need to take some piano lessons so I can learn how to read the notes so that I can eventually write some music. And you can imagine that they thought that I probably was going insane, and that probably was true at the time. But I did end up having a bunch of piano lessons and learning how to play the piano, learning how to read the notes, and eventually I started writing my own little pieces. Now, as I was writing these little piano pieces basically throughout elementary school and into middle school, I realized that I was gaining a little bit of confidence in my abilities as a composer, as a little 12, 13-year-old composer. And I began telling my friends and teachers that, hey, one day I'm going to be a composer and I'm going to write a piece for orchestra. And then, you can imagine all the light bulbs kind of going off, like, what is this guy talking about? But I persisted and I kept doing my thing while pursuing, academic things such as getting good grades and playing in the band and all those sorts of things that you try to do as a young student. Now, when I entered high school, I decided to be a lot more involved in the music program there. I was a member of the band, I was a member of the jazz band. In my senior year, I was even the drum major. But it was right in the beginning, actually, that fortified myself as a composer, and that was when I was in the 9th grade AP music theory class with our band director, Jonathan Kenyon, who was a big influence on me as I was going through high school. He was very supportive of me composing music. I actually composed for our high school band, and that gave me a lot of confidence as I was going through high school. And probably the biggest turning point for me was the very next year in 10th grade when I got this little pamphlet saying that the Los Angeles Philharmonic was starting a 2-year high school composer project that actually still exists today, 20 years on.
The Composers Fellowship Program is a program where we mentor young composers from Los Angeles County. These 4 young composers are getting the full attention of the Los Angeles Philharmonic. They're meeting with famous composers and conductors.
And I remember thinking to myself, this is the chance. This is it right here. I can hopefully write some music in this little 2-year program, learn a lot of things, and then we'll see what happens after that. You can actually see in the link in the description more details about this program because, like I said before, it still goes on to this day. If you like this video so far, please do remember to subscribe to the channel. Only about 10% of people that watch my videos are actually subscribed. So please go ahead and do that if you liked what you see so far. Thank you so much. So this program actually helped my chops a lot in terms of working with professional musicians because we got to work with string quartets, choral groups, woodwind quintets, and finally at the end of the second year, we actually got to write for the full symphony orchestra, which, as you can imagine, as a 16-year-old kid, was just a bonkers idea to have in general. And even now, I'm 29 years old, it's a crazy thing every time I write a piece for the orchestra. Fast forward 1 year into my senior year in high school, I had to make some decisions. Where was I going to go to college? Was I going to keep going with this composing thing, or was I going to do something else? Now, my initial thought was I don't want to just pursue composition, so I'm going to apply to university programs that have composition as well as a lot of other academic subjects. I ended up going with University of Southern California because, number one, it was right in my backyard. Number two, I had a scholarship to go there. And number three, they had all these other things you can do besides composition, which I was really attracted to. Now, once I got to USC, I realized, wow, this is the ultimate playground for a composer because you have all these high caliber musicians everywhere that are happy to play your music as long as you're nice to them. And they will actually perform your music. And if they like the pieces, they will perform it again and again and again. And I also got to write for the orchestra. And while I was there, since there was a big film school, I actually did end up writing a bunch of film scores while I was at USC. Heading into my senior year at USC, I had to make another decision. Am I going to keep going with this composition thing? And if so, how am I going to do it? So as I was talking to my composition teacher at the time, Bruce Broughton, I was telling him that, you know, what I'd really like to do is study with John Corigliano at the Juilliard School. And I'll never forget until this day that he looked straight at me and said, you know, Saad, I think that's gonna happen. And I hope you realize in this video that there's this common thread that I'm alluding to, that if you're telling people what you're going to do, it might manifest itself in real life. Because if you keep everything just to yourself, there's a lot of pressure that ends up building, especially in a field like music that's so competitive to begin with. I did end up applying to Juilliard and a bunch of other conservatories, but in the end, I did end up going to Juilliard for 2 years, studying with the teacher of my choice, John Corigliano. Being in New York for those 2 years as well was extremely enlightening too, because that's basically where all the classical music is going on. In Los Angeles, there's a lot going on too, but until you get to New York and experience what it's like living there for a couple of years, you realize what kind of a mecca it is for classical music in general. And if you'd like me to pontificate about my time at Juilliard, I'm happy to do so. Just please let me know down in the comments below, and I'll sure to tee up that video at some point in the future. Now, upon graduation from Juilliard in 2016, I realized that being in New York just for a couple of years is probably not going to cut it. I got to stay here a little longer. So what I decided to do from there is take a year off and go travel to a bunch of different artist residencies where one could write music for 6 weeks in Italy, then another 6 weeks in Wyoming, another 6 weeks in Florida. I did a bunch of these colonies back to back to back to back, and this is something, of course, I'd like to talk about in a future video as well. Once I got back from all that travel, I decided I wanted to go ahead and apply for a doctorate program in the New York area so I can stay there for a longer amount of time, get more used to the New York landscape, and also continue my education. After applying to a few doctoral programs in the New York area, I decided to go with Columbia University, where I studied with Georg Friedrich Haas for 2 years, George Lewis for 1 semester, and Brad Garn for 1 semester. And right now I'm in my dissertation year, so technically I should be writing my dissertation instead of filming a bunch of YouTube videos, but that's how it goes. So after 20 years, I'm immensely grateful to still be a composer and write the music that I love to write for the performers that I want to write for. This, at the end of the day, is the ultimate goal of being a composer. So if you enjoyed today's video, please consider watching one of these videos up here where I talk about the business of composition, how I make money as a composer, and also the various different creative processes that I do as a working composer today. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.